Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another week of Stage Door Medium. This is Jimmy here with our super special guest today, Sarah Meahl. Hi, Sarah.
Hello. It's so fun to be here. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to have you. If you're watching at home, Sarah has, like triple threat. And then she has so many Broadway show credits to her name. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. We have Paramour, Hello, Dolly. Sarah got to perform. I can't talk today. I'm tongue tied. Sarah got to perform with all of the amazing different Dollys. Also in the revival of Kiss Me, Kate. And if you watch the Tony Awards clip, it was awesome. Sarah is the one in that like reddish orange that you're like smoldering down at the foot of the stage. So what? Did I cover it? Did I get them right? Those three, correct?
Those are my 3 Broadway credits. Yes.
Okay, good. I got it. Thank you for coming here today. I'm so happy to have you. So I'd love to just dive right into it. If you feel comfortable starting with, because I'm always asked, like, did you know that you were going to be a medium, or did you know you were a medium from an early age? Did you know you had the gene to be a dancer, to be a performer?
I love to dance. My mom worked at Disney World. So I had access on Saturdays. I had access to be able to go into work with her. And if I was a good girl, I could go see one parade or, one show. And I always would. So I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And my grandma was a big band singer, Rita. She sang on the bandstand. So jazz ran in my family. So I love music and I love jazz, like classic old standards,
Yes.
1940s, everything is my favorite. So that's where the genes part kicks in, is old Rita, my grandma. But other than that, the dancing was all me.
How early did you get into dance?
Before I was potty trained, I wanted to dance, and my mom said, you cannot dance unless you're potty trained. And so that kicked me into shape.
It's funny that you mentioned the potty training, because yesterday I interviewed a guest who will be coming on, and she talked about how she started singing in church, and they broke the rules and they allowed her in at 3 when she was supposed to be like 5 or 6. But they're like, look, is your kid potty trained? Because if she's potty trained, she can sing in the choir. So she potty trained really fast, or she already was, that way that she could start. So I love that potty training is the gateway. Like, I wish I had a story being like, I wasn't allowed to contact spirits until I was potty trained or something like that. You also work in Reiki. So if you're watching at home, I'm just going to turn it over to Sarah, because I'd love if you could fill us in a little bit more about how you got into that, what it entails, what that looks like working with a client. Because I remember the first thing I told you when I emailed you was like, I feel like you can see energy and color around you all the time. And then it kind of turned into the cool discussion on it. So yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, I got into Reiki 2 or 3 years ago. I went to California to do a show and I was getting a massage. And while I was getting the massage, my masseuse, who is now my Reiki master, her name is Heather. She's wonderful. She touched me and we had like a kind of energy happen. And she said, "Oh my God, you're ancient." That was what she said to me. "You're ancient." And I said, "Yes." And she was like, "I know you came here for a massage. Can I give you Reiki?" And I said, "I have no idea what that is. I like you, so I'm going to say yes." And I trust you.
Yeah.
So she laid her hands over me in different parts of my body, which I now know are my 7 chakras. And she gave me all of her universal healing energy. And that's what Reiki is in a nutshell. So your client comes in, they lay down, and as a Reiki specialist, I guess I could, a Reiki specialist, you lay your hand. So I've been given this universal healing energy that I went through almost like this ancient ritual to obtain. And what I now have is this and I always already kind of was like this. So my hands get hot when I lay them over things or people or things that have energy, anything with energy, a plant, a person, and I can give you my healing goodness in energy. And what you do is you lay your hands on certain chakras of your body, and there are 7. They start with your very low parts. That's
Good
kind
way
of
of
like,
wording it.
yeah, that's kind of like your sexual energy. And then you have family, and then all the way up, there's a chakra that kind of covers each part of us that gives us a theme of our life. The last one being like higher intuition, spirituality. But this one is the one that I had an issue with a lot. And it was my throat chakra, the need to speak, the speaking my truth. And this one was very blocked for me. So sometimes as you are Reikiing a person, or as I am being Reikied, sometimes I want to cry. Sometimes there's an emotional, there might be a breath, or what it is you're trying to release the basically like mud in your chakras. You want them all to shine and be clear, and we get blocked. Things get blocked. So it's kind of like cleaning out the filter of your air conditioner. And when your 7 chakras are kind of in alignment and clear and not blocked, then you can be your best self. Reiki also heals injuries and headaches and things that ail you. It's helped my cramps. It's helped my knees. It's helped my staph infection. It's kept things at bay. And they even say, if you break a bone, don't Reiki before you set it, because Reiki starts healing immediately. So Heather, my Reiki specialist, she introduced me to Reiki. And from that point on, I just went back twice a week because I had so many blockages. I was so heavy. It was a hard time in my life, and I was going through a lot of pain, and she helped me. And as she was giving me Reiki, it's beautiful. There are essential oils, there are crystals involved, depending on what your specialist may want to give you. You could have music playing, or sometimes there's a sound bowl happening. And so I'm kind of meditating, and I've had these beautiful dreams and beautiful visions. I've learned things that I didn't know before as I was meditating, as I was receiving Reiki. And so for me, it was a no-brainer that one day I might want to get Reiki certified myself, because if I could help someone the way she helped me, and I already have that feeling where I can touch someone and know what they're dealing with, know what demon they might have with them in terms of, a heartbreak or something they're carrying that doesn't serve them. I can feel that already. I've always been that way. And this felt like my next way of helping. So Heather, gave me a Reiki certification, which entails like this very ritualistic, ancient, I can't even say what it is because it's so sacred.
Sure.
But it was intense. And the ringing in my ears afterward lasted, which is a side effect, months. And now I'm able to give Reiki to people who need it. And for a really long time, I didn't charge anyone because I just wanted to practice. Kind of like how you said, being a medium, you want to build the skill to make it stronger. And I didn't want to make anyone pay for me to practice. So I Reiki'd all my friends, and I'm a dancer. I'm a chorus girl. So I have a lot of friends with a lot of stress, anxiety, and hurt, pain from their ankle, pain from their knee. I recently just Reiki'd one of my best friends at her house, and she had broken both of her feet in the past 2 years. As I got down to her feet, I was so dizzy and my hands were so hot that I fell backwards. So it can be intense, or it can be just pleasant. It depends on where you are that day and what your body's going through. It's a beautiful, beautiful ritual, and it was created in the 30s or 40s. And it's really changed my life. And I have a long way to go. I'm 2 or 3 years old with it. So I have a very long journey ahead of me where I want to get better and improve. So that's Reiki in a nutshell. I'm trying to think if there's anything I didn't cover. I'm sure there is, but do you have anything to add to me?
I love that you called it an air conditioning filter, because I call our chakras an elevator shaft. And I say it's like you've got 7 different floors of the elevator. And I said, you don't want blockages. I said, you want the cables to be able to go up and down freely, the energy. But it's funny, as a medium, while I don't do Reiki work, they will identify which chakras are blocked. And then, so if you're watching at home, so, and if you've been read by me before, or if you've been, I will, many times that's my way into understanding something. So for example, if they start taking the solar plexus, AKA the belly area, and I see that it's blocked, for me, that signifies trust issues, self-doubt issues. So sometimes that's a nice way in, a gentle way of going, rather than, them saying, talk about their trust issues, or, I might say, I feel like your solar plexus is blocked a little bit. Or, not to be gross, but one time they had highlighted the sacral chakra area. And I was like, I just, again, it was the clear knowing. I went, are you starting to go through menopause early? And she was like, yes. So they'll use that sometimes as a way for me. Throat chakra is probably the most common one that I see as blocked when I speak with people, because they'll show me a traffic jam between the head and the heart. And it's really clear here and it's really clear here. But when it tries to come out, it gets jammed. So no, I think you said it best. I mean, I learned a lot hearing you talk about it. And but yeah, it's I always, before I do a reading, I will sage out all my chakras just to make sure, especially my crown chakra, because if you're watching at home, the crown chakra, which is the very tippy top up here, it's the source of where we get our higher consciousness from. And when you meditate, you typically visualize, I visualize it sounds so corny at home, like a little lotus petal that I open it up and I try to receive as much white light as I can to really clear this out and feel like the Wi-Fi connection, so to speak, is good. And then I'll always really try to clear out my third eye chakra. So again, if you're watching at home and you're not familiar, mediums, if they are clairvoyant, we're utilizing our third eye, which looks like you're watching a movie. And many times people will be clairaudient at home and they're not aware of it, but I'll ask them, I'll go, do you see things sometimes like while you're driving and you'll know how the rest of your night's going to go? Or do you like envision things while you're driving and then it happens? And they're like, yes. Why did you say that? I'm like, because when we're driving, our eyes, we're not focusing here, or we're not looking down. We're actually looking, when we're on the road, we're looking past. And that's technically where the third eye is located. So driving is some of the best times. Like, though I prefer a client to come to the studio, when I do have to go to them, it's a great wake up for my third eye, because it kind of gets that gunk out and it gets it moving. So that's I guess my experience with it. But I would love to, oh gosh, from there, I want to pick your brain, because, you talked about, I know with swinging into a show, I remember when I read you, we were talking about how you could sense the different energy off the castmates and how you work with that. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, what that feels like?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think the more you're with people, the more you can sense them. And that's obvious. No matter a person new or old, when you're in a dressing room with a group of people or backstage with a group of people, you're in a confined place with them. So it feels like everything gets more intense. And also, remember, we're in these old theaters. There's a lot of energy already in the theater. There's a lot of life that's been lived. There's a lot of recycled energy, which, so it may not be haunted, but it may have just like an energy that it keeps moving through in the same repetitive pattern because it's stuck somehow and I'm really interested in that. And so that's there in the dressing room on top of all these new women who are in the dressing room, maybe for, Kiss Me Kate, we were only there for 6 months. But think of all of the people and all of the past 100 years that have been in these old basement dressing rooms. So it almost feels like it all compounds and compacts and it makes it all more intense. So when I'm in those situations, I can feel things more so. And I think it's because the lack of sun, the lack of outside sources, we don't get Wi-Fi, we aren't getting enough water. And it kind of just makes it all very obvious. And that's part of it. So now the part of it that is interesting to me, the Reiki part of it, is when I am in the dressing room and I'm next to someone, they burn if I can feel like a sizzly burn feeling if they are not okay with themselves or with me or with anyone. If something's off, I cannot even focus. We also are looking into a mirror. Can't even focus. Can't even, it's so intense that I have to say, are you okay? How can I help? You know? Um, and then, of course, you go on stage and people carry everything with a more heightened, oh my godness, when they get to the stage because you're in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. There's an anxiety that comes with that, that expresses anything, any emotion that you might have. So, for instance, if I'm feeling a little bit hungry, but I go on stage, that feeling of hunger, because of my adrenaline and anxiety that's mixed in, hungry is my theme. So when I started to go on stage, as I was swinging in to Kiss Me Kate on Broadway, and I also swung Hello Dolly for, I think I swung Hello Dolly for a couple months, maybe 6 months. With both shows, with each person, you're touching them. And I'm very sensitive to touch. So I'm touching a new person who maybe doesn't know me or maybe doesn't trust me, and it's a first time. I can feel that. I can straight up feel exactly what they think about me, or what they're thinking in general. One day I was waiting to go on stage and a friend of mine was in front of me and I couldn't see him, and I walked up behind him, but I could feel that he was sad. He was sad. And he was just, his back was facing me, and I hugged him, and he cried and cried and cried and cried before we went on stage. He just, I knew, and he realized that I knew, and I just put my arms around him and I hugged him from the back, and he just let out this release. I think there's something about, first of all, being a dancer for a living. We are so emotional. Our physical body is so tied to our emotional state. And there's such a release that comes with being a physical person. If there's something bothering you, it's harder to keep it in when you're a dancer because we're dancing things out. And so does this make sense? The
Totally.
emotion is, it needs to come out. Yeah. So it all becomes very clear when I touch someone on stage and I'm dancing with their one hand. I'm like, this person doesn't trust me, or this person loves me and I feel connected, and this is beautiful, and this is, oh wow, I love dancing with this person, but we're together, we're in it. You can feel the differences. And when it's a negative thing, things start to spiral down, and I can see it, feel it, it's happening. Maybe we mess up, but it like gets me nervous when I feel what they're feeling. So swinging was really hard for me. It was a big challenge, and sometimes it was the best challenge. Sometimes it was wonderful and beautiful, and I felt so proud of myself. And then there were some days that were really hard because I could feel like that the swing's on mentality, and that's really hurtful and hard, but that's my job and I can't be someone else, so they just have to deal with it. But
We get that sometimes too. You know what I mean? Like I will have a client that will come in and they'll sit down in front of me, and like you said, I will get the energy off them right away that they don't trust me or they're already going in skeptical. And the one time I called her out right away, because I could just tell if I didn't call her out, her energy was going to be not so fun. So it was a very humanizing way of just getting to know her. And I looked at her and I started writing notes, and I'm like, you think this is a crock of shit, don't you? And she stopped, and like her face kind of contorted, and she was like, um, um, well, and gradually she kind of, it leaned into it. Yes. But it was more like I've never been to a medium before, so I don't know what to expect. And it was almost like I had to do that to reorient her, because otherwise it was probably going to be, she was going to go in there like a grump, you know what I mean? And exactly. And
yeah.
it was going to change it. And we get the exact, I loved how you said it. So mediums as well. I never thought of that. We sense heat off of, we like heat energy off of things too. So sometimes if I hear something, but I really want to make sure, I will put my hands out and I will say, okay, this side, if you can just give me a little bit of affirmation, this side would be a yes to what I just asked. This would be a no. And sometimes I'll sense the heat in it. And like, it's not like could it be this side? Or it's always a clear, like, heat rushes into the left or the right, and then I'll know. But like when you had talked about giving him the hug from behind, and somebody will ask me like, how did you know that right when I came in, like you didn't even start reading yet? I say that like I use the expression, it hangs on us. Like energy, pain, things like that hang on us if we don't release it. And to me, it almost looks like a piece of clothing that's on a person. If it's like depression, it will feel like a big old lumpy sweater. You know what I mean? Insecurity, like
I love
it's a way that
that.
I can sense it. Um, and I don't know. I just and I so hope I didn't cut you off. And if there were you going to add something to it? I'm so sorry.
Well, I just kept thinking of Jacob Marley's chains in
Christmas
in
Carol.
that same way. It's baggage. Yeah, in a Christmas Carol, you carry baggage, or in this case, he had a chain or a lumpy sweater, but it's something that's almost tangible. It's like when they say there's a reason people say, you can cut silence with a knife, or those little sayings that lend you to acknowledge the fact that sometimes things are palpable. Um, and I know when someone's really hurt, this is new for me since quarantine. When I'm around someone who needs something and I can tell that they're needing love, support, my hands start tingling. Like the energy wants to find them. It
Yes.
wants to go towards. I want it's coming through my hands. And or I went through a period of time in California right after my Reiki journey began. I was working with a bunch of children, and they all wanted to hug. And I'm not someone to ever turn down a hug, but as I was hugging these kids, I would pick up all of their feelings as I would hug them. And I don't think it was because I'm just special. I think it was because I was just like, my channel was clear. And I think anyone could have that if their channel is clear enough. I was having Reiki twice a week. I was meditating. I was going to yoga every day, and I was happy. I was finding like glimpses of joy in each day. And I would hug the kids and pick up a lot of them was like desperate. Like, we were doing a show, and it was like a lot of like, hey, Sarah, hugs. And it was just a lot of like desperation. Sometimes it was like, not confident, just sad. Oh, it would break my heart. And so I had to go to stage management and say, can we please refrain from some of the hugging? It's making me really emotional, because I would hug someone and pick up like a thing that happened maybe at home, like with parents, like maybe something bad. It was a lot. And I, of course, I just seemed like the callous New Yorker in California who didn't want to hug the kids. But it wasn't that. It was that I was
It's a
having a
lot.
really hard time. My energy, so it would become whatever theirs was, and I couldn't hold my own ground. And I still struggle with that. And I can imagine that that would be hard for you as a medium, to not take that away, to not take my story home with you after you've read me, to not carry, my grandpa and my dead aunt home with you from the other side, which I know happened. So I can only imagine how tricky it is, because I know I carry whatever happened in the theater, whatever I felt, I carry that home.
Ones are
And
even worse.
I don't think it's even like a Reiki thing. I just think it's like we're dancers, we're moving, we're together, we're sharing space, we're breathing in each other's faces. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I cut you off. No, what's even harder is when you pick up on the energy that's so similar to your painful experience. So sometimes I will be shown a mirror when I'm doing a reading. And if it's something and I'm like, no, 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 like I know where we're going with this, I'll be shown something. And then I get the mirror image and like, I'm grateful that I've gone through it. So I can say, you know what, I'm going to straddle the line right now between medium, what they want me to share, and then just as a human that went through this experience. But those are the ones that stick with me. If it's something that I have struggled with to learn and to grow from, those are hard. And you said it best, like you've got to cut yourself off after a point. You can't take it home with you. And I got to go back to something that you said earlier, because if people are watching at home, about charging for readings, charging for Reiki work, and how, you know, when you're kind of starting off, it might be like, I don't know if I feel comfortable charging for this, or I'm just going to do this so I can get the experience. And that's wonderful. But it's funny, after a while, you do have to accept, you know, you do have to, there has to be some type of exchange, because it's an energy exchange. You know, if not careful, and it's, you get it, if it's, I'm going to keep doing this for you, there's, and I won't lie, there's the tendency where, like, I have, my friends are very respectful of it, and they don't really, I will offer insight, but and if I had friends though that were all kind of like emotional leeches, and we're like, can you read this for me? Can you read this? Can you read this? It's an energy exchange. It's the same as if you weren't a medium and you're just constantly being that friend that's taking somebody, driving them around everywhere. Eventually your car is going to run empty on gas. You know what I mean? It's the same thing spiritually, where you're like, I'm whooped. So there does have to be, because that's a good one. I didn't even think of it explaining it that way, but it's the same thing. I mean, you, after a while, you're going to say, hey, cheap ass, give me some money for gas. If I'm driving you around all the time, it has to be an exchange. You know what I mean? So if you're watching at home and you're like, well, why does a medium charge like what they do? Why does a Reiki? It's also a specialty. You know what I mean? Like, you are, when people ask, I trained, you know, you trained, um, you know, I am very proud of my training. I think there's a real temptation to fall into, and I don't get me wrong, I love it. I love that on YouTube you can learn how to like build a deck or do something for technology. When it comes to mediumship and Reiki work, you really have to work with a human one-on-one, you know what I mean? Or in a group, to really get that sense of, even remote is still great. You know what I mean? Like, you can tap in, but you've got to be working with somebody that is skilled in what they're doing, and they can teach you the do's and don'ts. You know, there's a lot of things in mediumship that can go wrong if you're not careful, opening yourself up to bad energy, spooky energy. You know, that was the very first thing that I learned when I trained at Lilydale. Was, she said, rule number one, you're in charge of the entire experience. You are in charge. She's like, spirits are not in charge. She's like, if you don't like what you're getting, you tell them to stop. She was like, you set the ground rules for what you're going to be shown, for who comes through. So I think, you know, if you know, sometimes I'll hear of younger people that are like, I think I'm going to get into it and just read a book on, excuse me, read watch a YouTube video. I'm like, be careful with that. You know what I mean? You do have to be a little cautious of how you're getting your information, and who you're allowing to train you, so to speak. And, okay, so I guess going there, can we talk, is there anything you feel comfortable sharing about your reading? Because I read you now, what, 2 weeks ago, a week
I
ago?
think it was one. It was 1 week ago.
It
I
has
think.
already, it stuck with me. It was so, I left there like glowing. I was so happy to have met you and now have you in my, you know, group of people that I can, you know, call a friend. And
First of all, that was up to date the most important thing that's happened for me. That reading changed my life, and I've never been read before. I'm so happy it was with someone who understands how important this information is and how fragile we are when we're receiving it. And you took care. You showered us in a white light of energy. It felt safe. It felt controlled. And that I will always be thankful for, because it changed my life. So a bunch of, okay, so like there's so much to share. I'm situated. Okay, my favorite thing that I keep coming back to, and I keep thinking about it. Now I'm going to start before our reading.
sure.
My whole life, I'm an only child. My whole life, I have felt alone. And sometimes it feels really like, oh, woe is me. Like, oh, I'm alone in the world. And I am aware that there are people that have bigger problems than not having a brother or sister, or, you know, someone close. But I've always had this feeling that something was missing. I had something taken away from me, or something was missing that I was supposed to have. And so I really couldn't put my finger on this sorrow. And I've been feeling it all my life. It almost feels like I'm missing a certain soulmate or something that was supposed to be my life. And when we had our reading, one of the most important things you said to me that I can't remember if my guides told you or if this spirit told you his self, but that I
Him
was
directly.
directly. That makes it even more powerful. This this spirit that was missing from my life was supposed to be my brother. And for whatever reason, he wasn't able to come, but I have always dreamt, always. And maybe had waking, very confusing early age, I thought I had a brother. And I used to ask my mom, did I have a little brother? And she, for a while, said yes. And then she was saying no. I was very confused. I think she tried to either play a trick on me or she felt confused. This is all such a hazy, distant memory, almost like something I've blocked out and I have revisited for, a couple different times, a few different years in the past, that I was supposed to have a little brother. And I even I can see him in my head. I can see what he looks like. He looks a lot like me, but he's younger and he's playful and fun and we giggle. And I have all these dreams about this brother who's talked to me in dreams, told me information in dreams. And Jimmy told me that I was supposed to have this brother and that he's with me. And he's with me when I cook, which is my thing. That's my thing that I do by myself. It reminds me of family. And sometimes it's sad because it reminds me of the family I don't have, but the family I wanted or the family I want. And don't get me wrong, I have two parents and my mom's my best friend and we have a relationship. And it's not that I am an orphan, but that I was just supposed to get this person that I didn't get. And knowing that it was, so I guess, Jimmy, if you want to, talk about what my brother said to you or what, how that came through, maybe that would help our audience.
Are we talking about the part 2 part?
I want to share that too. So
the part about his name, is that what you're referring to?
Well, I didn't know exactly how he came through to you or what.
Sure. So here's the one thing too, when you're watching at home, it's really interesting. If you're they do grow up in spirit on the other side. So I felt like he would have been somebody close in age to you, but sometimes they'll do this, they'll snap, kind of like how everyone on TikTok or the splice videos. And then when you look again, he was super cute. He had a lightish brown hair. Some spots seemed a little bit darker than others. And he had on a striped t-shirt and he had on jeans. And I didn't even tell you that last time, but he looked almost like the little boy from, it's going to sound so dark and I don't mean it that way. He just looked like the little boy from It. He looked like Georgie from the new movie, super cute, running around. And okay, you have to refresh my memory because I remember part 2, but what did he say? Because let me go there first. Because it's as a medium, we're like the telephone. We don't remember what we say sometimes because we're just the conduit that relays it. But I distinctly remember he gave me a name and then you're like, well, that's funny. You're like, that's my husband's name. And I'm like, and I was second guessing. And then he sucker punched me, meaning you better say this. And I remember I asked you, I was like, do you want to be a mom? And because they showed me an X on the timeline, which means it's happening. I can promise it. And you said, yes, really bad. And I remember hearing him go, I will be back. And he showed me him getting onto a slide. One day he will come back. And it was the most beautiful thing. He made me feel without a doubt, he's going to come back and that's going to be your kid one day. So the relationship that you didn't have with him as a brother, you will have with him as your son. And how interesting then that the same name that he gave me was your husband's name. And I'm like, you never know. Maybe they want to honor, maybe you guys will want to honor your husband's name and keep it a part of, so it's always the most surprising ways that they come out and relay things. Yeah.
It's so beautiful to me. I think it's hilarious that you were like Edward, because that's literally my husband's name. And I love the thought of, first of all, I believe in reincarnation. I believe that we come to Earth in like soul clusters, so that we keep kind of reincarnating with the same people over and over again, but we just have different roles and we play different parts. I love that idea, and I believe it wholeheartedly, because I can look at certain people in my life and be like, you were my teacher, you were my friend, you were a lover, but in this life you're my friend,
Yes.
and you're also a girl, like whatever it was. And do I always share this with them? No. Have I? Yes.
Yeah.
And I love that in this brother that I didn't get to have is going to come back still as my family. And I love that until then, you told me, he said that he will be with me cooking. He's with me when I cook, and
Yes.
he loves the way he's like, it smells so good in there.
Yes. Because I remember I got some. So sometimes they'll do that. They'll give us this clear. We'll smell things pretty strongly. So if somebody smoked, we'll smell smoke. The one time I smelled basil on pizza and like mozzarella, and sometimes I'll smell coffee, things like that. So they'll do what they have to. First off, you hit the nail on the head too. I describe it, reincarnation is almost like American Horror Story, where Ryan Murphy has the same set of actors that will be on every season, but as different parts and different roles. And I guess I'm going to answer this because sometimes I get asked a question a lot about, and it's heartbreaking when you bring forward a child that was brought into the world and passed away at 4 years old or 5 years old. And one of the main reasons why a medium is going to say, and not to speak for all mediums, but for myself, I always say, like, you'll hear them go like, well, that's not fair. They couldn't have learned everything that they needed to learn by 5 years old. And I go, exactly. So, however, when they come through in a reading and they take tons of hands and they lock them and like interlock them, that means, as horrible as their passing and painful as it was, sometimes people come here as a catalyst for other people's growth.
That's
You
what
know what
I
I
like
mean?
about it. Yeah, I don't think that, a baby died young or something. Yeah, that's so sad. But sometimes they didn't come for them. They came from someone in their soul cluster that needed to learn a lesson or needed to grow through that pain or something like that. And I think knowing that my brother was supposed to be here and wasn't is one of my lessons in life, that I have to bear I'm dealing with a lot in my family. There's a lot going on. It's COVID.
Sure.
I'm dealing with it alone. And yes, I have my husband, but I don't have siblings to talk to about this. And I didn't grow up with like that built-in support system. And I've had to find that on my own, and it's made me a stronger person. And I think because of that, I have done the things I've done. And now I'm a teacher slash I try to like life coach my kids when I teach dance, to help them better themselves in that way so that they can be stronger. So I definitely don't think that we're always put on earth for us. And that I actually like really need to say this out loud, because I don't know if I ever have. Ever since I started believing in reincarnation, and by believing I mean reawakening something that has always made sense to me,
Sure.
because I grew up religious, because of my family, I have this great feeling that this life, I was not put on earth for me, and it's making the way my life is happening easier for me, because I know that I'm here for a few other people,
Mhm.
I'm here mostly to help them grow. Am I going to grow too? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that there are certain people on earth that I'm put here to help them grow. And my lot in life might not be the perfect ideal experience that I wanted it to be. But knowing that I might come back next time better with a different circumstance and a different situation, knowing that makes this time okay.
Yeah.
It makes
Oh,
it okay.
you were you are such a light. I love talking to you. Um, the way that you said that about it might not be about me. I'm I mean, my great grandmother just passed away a couple months ago from just old age. You know what I mean? What a badass. She had COVID. She was asymptomatic. She beat it. It's interesting though, she had been really not with it for years, and sometimes I would hear our family members go like, not in a rude way, but they're like, why is she still here? Like, why doesn't God call her home? Or, and my answer to that is, again, just like somebody can be taken off the earth for a short period of time to help as a catalyst, sometimes we're here for a really long period of time as a catalyst for other people. So if you are, this person's daughter, and there are things that, I won't go into it too much, but if they know that by hanging on here for a while is going to also challenge you and push you, they're going to do what they can to help you map out the lessons that you put on your plate before you got here. So I
I can
knew.
equate this to Dolly Levi in Hello Dolly. I feel like that show made a lot of sense to me
Yes.
because she was put there to be a catalyst for change in all these different areas. She had her hand in a lot of businesses to help them grow. She even says at the end, what's the point of having money unless you can spread it around to help new young things grow? And I think that spoke to me so prolifically because I wanted to be like her in the way that she gave people chances. She gave she introduced love to people. She kind of match made people. She kickstarted their business. She kind of was everywhere, but
Yeah.
not she wasn't really doing much for her. Did she have a great life? Yes, she did. She had already had the love of her life. He had passed on. And now she was living this next phase of her life to give back to others because she had already felt what that was like to be at peace with herself. And so I want to that's kind of like my favorite thing about Dolly, about doing the show, was I learned that that's how I want to be. I want to be like Dolly Levi in that way. I want to introduce people to each other and start new businesses, like help people grow their business, contribute to a new business, just do stuff to help others because I can. Not that I have like money bags, but I can support someone. I have a platform to speak on a lot of people's behalfs. Again, not that I have such a huge platform, but I do have a mouth and I can use my words. And there are people who will hear me.
Hello, Dolly. That show is so in touch with so many spiritual principles. And at the end of Act One, I remember sitting there. I was like front row watching Bette Midler, and I won't lie, I knew nothing about the show. I'd never seen the movie. I didn't want to watch it before I went in there. And I remember crying at the end of Act One when she's giving the monologue. Because if you're watching from home and you don't remember so well, or if you've never seen it, Dolly will frequently stop and talk to her deceased husband, Ephraim. And at one point, she talks about how she has been kind of in this coma state, in her way of living. And then I remember the line that, to say it will make my hair stand up. I have goosebumps right now. And she says, like, I would like to rejoin the human race. And then she says, I want you to give me away. And I remember like just crying. And as a medium, that's what I strive to do when I reconnect people with their loved ones on the other side, because they go through this period of time where they very much, even in 2020 right now, there's like the pandemic, the feeling of isolation and not tying in with the human race, and so badly wanting to rejoin it at some point, but not knowing how, and praying that like our loved ones will come through to help us get back into it. That moment, there's certain theatrical memories I have that are kind of branded up here where I can remember everything about that moment. It's like it downloads into like a hard drive, and that moment will always be one that has stayed with me. I guess while we're on the topic of Dolly really quick, can you talk about, I mean, I would have lost my shit like every night, like in like getting to perform alongside Bernadette Peters, Bette Midler, like Donna Murphy. Like, can you talk anything fun that you can share about them for the folks at home?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank God I joined as the vacation swing within the first 3 months because I was so busy learning all of these girls, like learning 12 tracks, 12 women that I had to, go on for at any moment. I didn't have time to freak out.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have time to, like the way would fangirl now. I didn't have time to do because I had 3 days and I was on stage. So I hadn't met Donna or seen Donna before I was on stage with Donna. My first show was a Donna show, and Donna and I hit it off. Donna Murphy I love her. I love her. We're like, I talk to her on Instagram a lot. I feel like the most close to her. And I feel like we had a special connection, and maybe I think she's spiritually very connected as well. And we had like a line, like an energy line running between us. And, of course, there are people that you have that with, and then people who you maybe don't have that with, and that's okay too. Okay, so that was Donna. Then I had Bet for the other, let's see, we do 8 shows a week. Donna did 1. So Bet did the other 7. And Bet at first couldn't tell me apart from, there's another girl on the show that looked a lot like me. And I was sometimes there and she was confused. So when I was on stage, they would tell her, but then when I got on stage, she like, look at me like, who are you? I think one time she might've said it. But then of course, as I ended up getting my own track in the show, after 6 months, someone left and I took their track, and then I did my own track every night. And that's when Bet and first Bet left. So then I had Bernadette. So I felt like I didn't really get to know Bet that well the first 6 months, although we did have a talk about our bunions, because we both have really big bunions on our feet. And she was funny. She was always lovely and pleasant, but like, you don't get a lot of her, One time she was like, you're sitting on my purse. And I was like, I'm sorry. That was like, we were on stage. Okay, so fast forward 6 months later, I joined the show full time, and so does Bernadette. And Bernadette, first of all, I named my confirmation name was Sarah Catherine Bernadette Meahl. That was my confirmation name. Didn't tell her till she left the show because I was embarrassed. But I was so obsessed and in love with Bernadette. Like, I love her. Oh, I love her so much. So I was like, hey, Bernadette. Like, before I had even met her, I like asked her a question. I was like, Bernadette, blah, blah, blah. And she looked at me like, who are you? She was so nice and lovely. And Bernadette has a special connection with animals. She runs Broadway Barks. She created it, which does a lot of great things for animals in the community, but mostly it's an adoption place for doggies that need to get adopted. And she does a lot of good work, and she is her own Dolly Levi, in the same way that Bette Midler is also actually Dolly Levi. She really does do a lot of charity work, benefit work. She does beautification for New York City. I mean, she's everywhere. Yes. All of these women, same with Donna, all of them give back. And weirdly, all of them have had a very large loss. Like us, they've all suffered. They've all lost someone that they loved, who is very close to them. So they all have pain that they could pull from. And I think that's something to be said, that all those 3 women that got to do the show had all been through something hard, and they could access that on stage, and they were brave enough to.
Yeah.
Bernadette was awesome. She had us over to her beautiful house. She had us out. She took us out to breakfast. We did things with Bernadette. She took us out, and that was really special. And I have this relationship with all 3 of these awesome women who, it's changed my life. They've changed everyone's life. Watching Bette Midler on stage is a masterclass on energy transfer.
Yes.
So one of the things I love about theater, and that I know you'll be able to relate to as a medium, is that when you are performing for an audience, you have them, you're giving them energy, and they are giving back energy. And it's this constant push and pull. It's like, again, like a cord, like a spinal cord or like a umbilical cord stretching across the pit, and you have them and you reel it in, and then they take it back and they laugh, and then you reel it in, and that's what you want. I have never seen it executed so perfectly, so bravely and beautifully than the way Bette can master an audience. I felt like every night was a master class, and I was lucky enough as the swing for 6 months to watch out from the front how it was done.
Yeah.
And I spent the next, the other couple months from behind her, as every part on stage she was my vantage point from 12 different parts on the stage, seeing how that's done. A true lesson in not just performing, but in energy.
Watching her eat the turkey, the turkey leg, I remember distinctly going, this is someone who knows she has you eating out of the palm of her hand the entire night. She knows how much you need, when you're going to get it, when you're full, when you're hungry again. I remember that was the first thing when I called home to say, like, I was raving about it. Like, I felt like I needed this show. It came to me as an audience member at the very perfect time. That was the first thing that stuck out with me. It was joyous, and just Bette Midler knew how to. It was very different than stage presence. This wasn't a stage presence thing I was talking about. This was a energy transfer. You said it best, and if you were stuck as a ghost in a theater and could only see one show literally for all of eternity, what would you pick?
Into the Woods.
Somebody else said that. I want to say Jason from Phantom mentioned that, and it's with the original, like that. We're like with the original. There's like Bernadette. No exceptions.
Absolutely, because here's the thing: Sondheim does what no one could do, which is he can. Every time you hear the words, you pick up something different that you missed before that is triggering you at that time. So I could watch that show over and over, and each time there would be something else that I was like, that's affecting me today. Yeah. But that didn't affect me yesterday. Something else did. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a good choice. Which character that you've played in the past, do you think would, or any character of a show that you've been a part of that would benefit most from seeing a medium? Right?
Okay. I can't, like, of course, in this instance, I can't think of any time that I ever had a role in a show, but like I have.
Yeah, that's okay.
I think that maybe when I was in Can, which never came to Broadway, but was supposed to.
Was that City Center?
That was at Paper Mill, but I'm actually changing my mind. Nixing. Okay, so Secret Garden, which was supposed to come to Broadway, but still hasn't yet, and we're still hoping for that.
It'll get there.
Yes, I was playing the role of Cholera, which has never been played as a person before. So I was playing a pandemic. And in a way, I think I was personifying death. And I think that character could have really used a medium to figure out why so dark, so. That's kind of a weird choice. And I'm sure that the second this interview's over, I'm going to think of the better one and text you.
One performer that you've run into backstage that's left you starstruck.
It has to be backstage.
It can be on stage. Doesn't matter.
I worked with Hugh Jackman, and that, like, literally just his eyeballs. I lose myself in his eyeballs.
What about his eyeballs? Say it again.
I lose myself in them. And not even like in a, oh, you're so handsome way. It's just, he's mesmer. He's special. He's green. Like, he buzzes.
Yes.
When I'm around him, which is only, I'm saying it like it's been a lot. It was like something in there keeps, it's like he's got a motor going that we don't all have that. When I see someone and if I can see their energy, which isn't all the time, his is like, it's coming out of his face. Like, it's like, he's got a vibrance he's vibrant.
He's a high vibrational being for sure.
High. Yeah, it's very exciting.
So you guys at home, when Broadway is back, I can guarantee you Sarah Meahl will be in a Broadway show. Look her up. I will give you her social, her Insta handle on here. Look her up, support her. And I know that we will see you back on a Broadway stage very soon. So I want to thank you so much. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. I miss you already.
I miss you too. Bye-bye.